Hey Civ fans, your friendly neighborhood Lucifer Kaiser here with today's video about the governors of Civilization 6. And first, a quick shout out to the user Bunny Viet for recommending me cover this video. This video is for you, bud. So let's jump right into it. First, looking at Pingala, the educator, who I think is probably the most useful of the governors. Let's look at their first default title, which is Librarian, which gives 50% increase in science and culture generated by the city. This title is very useful. I often get this title. I often get Pingala straight off the bat. Now let's look at the tier 1 titles. We have Researcher, which grants +1 science per turn for each citizen in the city, and then Connoisseur, which gives you +1 culture per turn for each citizen in the city. So very similar. One's for science and one is for culture. I tend to be getting Researcher a little more just because I find science a little more useful, and culture, the Connoisseur title is very good also if you want to be focused more on that culture victory, but both of them are very good. Now to the tier 2 title, we have Grants, which gives you +100% great person points generated per turn in the city, and this is good for if you're going down science or culture victory, so I'll definitely be getting this one, or if you just getting great people points for anything in any sort of Civ game, this title is very useful. Now onto the tier 3 titles, we have Space Initiative, which gives you 30% production increase to all space program projects in the city. And then we have on the right Curator, which gives you +100% tourism from great works of art, music, and writing in the city. Both these are pretty good, but they're very focused on those win conditions for science and culture. So if you're focusing on those, then yes, you want to be getting those. If you're not going to be focusing on these, then you probably don't need to get them. But if you do want to get science or cultural victory, you probably want to be picking these up. Now onto Reyna, the financier, another governor I find rather useful. Her default title is Land Acquisition, where you acquire new tiles in the city faster, and you get +3 gold per turn for each foreign trade route passing through the city. So this title is alright, I think it's pretty good. Onto the tier 1 titles, we have Harbor Master, which doubles adjacency bonuses from commercial hubs and harbors in the city. And on the right we have Forestry Management, where this city receives +2 gold for each unimproved feature, and tiles adjacent to unimproved features receive +1 appeal in the city. And for the most part, I tend to be getting Harbor Master. Harbor Master is a little more consistent, and with Forestry Management, if you want to improve some of those resources and stuff like that, then you're going to be losing gold in that case, which is why I tend to go with Harbor Master, just because, you know, it's a little more consistent. You don't have to worry about losing gold later on. Looking at the tier 2 title, we have Tax Collector, which gives you just straight up +2 gold per turn for each citizen in the city, and that's just nice to have. That's just a nice little title, so I tend to be getting this one. And onto the tier 3 titles, we have Contractor, which allows the purchase of districts with gold, and on the right we have Renewable Subsidiary, where all offshore wind farms, solar farms, wind farms, geothermal plants, hydroelectric dams in the city receive +2 power and +2 gold. For the most part, I like to get Contractor. Contractor is so useful, especially if you're swimming in gold. You can just plop down districts like it's nobody's business. It's definitely super useful. I really like Contractor. Renewable Subsidiary is okay, but definitely I prefer getting Contractor. Now onto Victor the Castellan, and his default title is Redoubt, which increases the city garrison combat strength by 5, and Victor is established in 3 turns instead of the normal 5 for most of the governors. So I think this is pretty good. Victor is a pretty good governor all around, especially if you're focusing on domination or protecting yourself. Looking at the tier 1 titles, we have Garrison Commander, where units defending within the city's territory get +5 combat strength. Your other cities within 9 tiles gain +4 loyalty per turn towards your civilization. And so this is pretty good, especially if you're just captured a new city and struggling with loyalty, you definitely want to maybe get this title and then send in Victor, and he'll help defend that city. And on the right we have defense logistics, where a city cannot be put under siege. Accumulating strategic resources gain an additional +1 per turn. This is okay, but like I find I'm never fully under siege by the AI or anything like that, so I tend not to worry about getting this one. I definitely prefer getting Garrison Commander in this case. Looking at the tier 2 title, we have Embrasure, where a city gains an additional range strike per turn, and military units trained in the city start with a free promotion that do not already start with a free promotion. So I think Embrasure is pretty good. Getting a free promotion for your units is nice. And cities gain an additional range strike. That's good for helping you defend again as well. So yeah, this title is pretty good. Now looking at the tier 3 titles, we have Air Defense Initiative, where you get +25 combat strength to anti-air support units within the city's territory when defending against aircraft and ICBMs. And then on the right we have Arms Race Proponent, where you get 30% production increase to all nuclear armament projects in the city. I tend to not get either of these. I guess you could, overall I might maybe prefer Arms Race Proponent, especially if you're focusing on domination so you can get more of those nukes, but really you don't need nukes to win a domination victory. They're definitely helpful, but then maybe, yeah, I think I might lean towards Arms Race Proponent, but I tend not to get this one. Now looking at Amani, the Diplomat, her default title is Messenger, where she can be assigned to a city-state where she acts as 2 envoys, which is pretty good, I think. Definitely helpful for, establishing your presence with a city-state and helping you get towards being suzerain. Looking at the tier 1 titles, we have Emissary on the left here, where other cities within 9 tiles and not owned by you gain +2 loyalty per turn towards your civilization. On the right we have Affluence, where while established in a state provides you a copy of its luxury resources to you. Now I kind of prefer the Affluence because it definitely, at this stage in the game, you're probably going to be wanting maybe a little bit of extra luxuries. Getting a little like +2 loyalty per turn to some cities is not that helpful in my opinion. It's not going to be really swaying things either way. It's a little too small of a loyalty pressure. If I were to change this, I would definitely increase the loyalty pressure or something. But definitely, yeah, I would prefer getting Affluence, especially because if we look at the tier 2 titles, looking at them now, we have Local Informants on the left, where enemy spies operate at 3 levels below normal in the city, which is okay, but I find the AIs don't use spies a whole lot, and you can usually defend against them pretty well by just making your own spies and counter-spying them in your city. But on the right we have Foreign Advisor, which I particularly like, where while established in a city, it accumulates its strategic resources, and when a suzerain receives double the amount of accumulated strategic resources. This is super useful, especially if you have a strategic resource you really need, like maybe there's some aluminum or something, or some oil in the city of that city-state. You can have Foreign Advisor with Amani and send them into the city-state, and then you'll be able to get that resource without having to go send out a settler and settle a new city or conquer someone else just to get some strategic resource. And on our tier 3 title, we have Puppeteer, where while established in a city-state doubles the number of envoys you have there. So this is really good for, switching a city-state to loving you and getting a suzerain status for a city-state. So this is definitely useful. I like getting this one as well. Now on to Liang, the Surveyor, and her default title is Guildmaster, where all builders trained in the city get +1 build charge, so that's pretty good. That's like having a great pyramid, like a mobile great pyramid going wherever. So that's all right. Yeah, I tend to get Liang for just that one title at least. Looking at tier 1 titles, we have Zoning Commissioner. It grants you plus 20% production towards constructing districts in the city. And then on the right, we have Aquaculture, where you get this fishery unique improvement, which can be built in the city on coastal plots, where it yields 1 food and then plus 1 food for adjacent sea resources. And the fisheries provide plus 1 protection if Liang is actually in the city. So I tend to be going for Zoning Commissioner because plus 20% production toward constructing districts is definitely just useful all around, and can definitely help you build up some struggling cities. Aquaculture is nice if you have a struggling coastal city where you just have lots of water, like maybe it's on like a 2-tile island or something. Then maybe you want to get aquaculture and put a bunch of fisheries around there. Now looking at the tier 2 titles, we have Reinforced Materials, where this city's improvements, buildings, and districts cannot be damaged by environmental effects. And then Waterworks, where you get plus 2 housing for every neighborhood and aqueduct district in the city, and plus 1 amenity for every canal and dam in the city. So I tend not to be getting either of these. For Liang, I tend to just stick with the tier 1 titles, and I tend not to get anything above that. Now looking at the tier 3 titles, tier 3 title, we have Parks and Recreation, which gives you the city park unique improvement, which can be built in the city. It yields 2 appeal and 1 culture and 1 amenity if adjacent to water. And city parks provide 3 culture if Liang is in the city. So a little bit of culture, a little bit of appeal, a little bit of amenities. I tend not to get this one, and the amount of culture you're getting is not too crazy, so it's not really going to be winning you that culture game at this point, so I tend not to get this one as well. Now onto Maksha, the Cardinal. Now Maksha I tend not to get unless I'm focusing on religious victory, and if you're not focusing on religious victory, you really don't need Maksha that much, or at all. So the default title for Maksha is Bishop, where religious pressure to adjacent cities is 100% stronger from the city and plus 2 faith per specialty district in the city. So yeah, if you're focusing on religious victory, get Maksha. Bishop is good. Looking at the tier 1 titles, we have Grand Inquisitor, where it gives you plus 10 religious strength in theological combat in tiles of the city. And then Laying of the Hands, where all governor units heal fully in 1 turn in tiles of the city. I tend to prefer Grand Inquisitor. Laying of the Hands is fine, but I'm not worried too much about healing my religious units. I'm more focused on the combat, even though the Grand Inquisitor can only be really used in your cities. So, you know, these 2 tiles I'm not so crazy about, but some of the later tiles I like. So let's go on to tier 2. So tier 2 is Citadel of God, where the city ignores pressure and combat effects from religions not founded by the governor's player, making faith equal to 25% of construction cost when finishing buildings. I think the second part about the buildings is definitely nice. So Citadel of God is alright to get, especially if you're going religion. Now looking at the tier 3 tiles, we have Patron Saint, where apostles and warrior monks trained in the city receive 1 extra promotion when receiving their first promotion. Then Divine Architect, which allows cities to purchase districts with faith. So both of these are pretty great. I tend to lean towards Patron Saint, just because you're just improving your apostles and warrior monks. Whereas Divine Architect, you're sort of siphoning your religion to do other things. Whereas Patron Saint's more focused on that religious victory, which you're probably going to be going for at this point with Maksha and everything. So definitely leaning towards Patron Saint. If you have the extra title and you have a ton of extra faith, sure, get Divine Architect, why not, right? Now on to Magnus, the Steward, and the default title for Magnus is Groundbreaker, where he gets plus 50% yields from plot harvest and feature removals in the city, and that's alright. That's definitely helpful for, you know, boosting up a city with those removals and harvests. Looking at the tier 1 title, we have some plus logistics, and where it gets you plus 20% food growth in the city, and your trade routes ending here provide plus 2 food to their starting city. And on the right we have provision, where settlers trained in the city do not consume a citizen population. So both these are okay, especially early on in your civ game, for growing your civilization and keeping your population up and positive. So I think I tend to go with surplus logistics, just because training settlers isn't as common as just wanting more food, increasing the population. I think surplus logistics is a little more useful. Looking at the tier 2 titles, we have industrialists, where it increases the power provided by each resource of the coal power plant, the oil power plant, and nuclear power plant by 1, and production by 2. So I tend not to get this one. And same thing for black marketer, where strategic resources for units are discounted at 80%. That's okay, I guess. Like, I tend not to need that kind of stuff, but it's okay. But again, I tend not to get these titles. I think there's some better titles of other governors. And for the tier 3 title for Magnus, we have vertical integration, where this city received production from any number of industrial zones within 6 tiles, not just the first. So this is good at really increasing production. So if you already got this either industrialist and black marketer, and you really want some more production, sure, you get vertical integration. I tend not to get this one. As I sort of said, there's other titles I prefer that I think give you a little more bang for your buck and stuff like that. Just because you have to get some of these other ones that you probably don't want. So that's my opinion on it. Now on to Ibrahim, the Grand Vizier. He is unique to the Ottoman civilization, so if you're not playing as the Ottomans, you won't need to be concerned about Ibrahim at all, unless you're facing against the Ottomans, I guess. But Ibrahim has a special thing where he takes 3 turns to establish and can be put in capitals of other civs. And his default title is Pasha, which guarantees you plus 20% production to all military units in the city, so that's pretty great. If you're playing as the Ottomans, you definitely want to be getting Pasha. Just do it. Looking at the tier 1 titles, we have Head Falconer, where all friendly units fighting within the city's territory gain plus 5%, not 5%, plus 5 combat strength. Yeah, we did it. And then on the right we have Sarasker, where it grants all units within 10 tiles of the city center plus 10 combat strength when attacking defensible districts. So both these are pretty good. I think Head Falconer is a little more useful in all scenarios, where Sarasker is a little more focused on fighting against defensible districts. So take your pick. I would probably lead towards the left one, but both of them are pretty good. Looking at the tier 2 titles for Ibrahim, we have Kas Oda Bashi on the left here, where when established in an allied foreign capital, alliance leveling rate is increased with the owner. That's alright. I think as Ibrahim, I think as the Ottomans, you tend not to be focused on getting alliances and stuff like that. So because you're going to be, killing everybody. So I tend not to get this one. On the right we have Kapu Aga, where when established in a foreign capital, grievances from the city owner against you are reduced by 1 more per turn. So I tend to get this one just because you are going to be probably conquering a bunch of people, and this will definitely help you relieve some of that pressure, some of those grievances against you from those civilizations. So onto the tier 3 title, we have Grand Vizier, where when established in a foreign capital, none of the owner's cities exert low pressure on your city. So this one is really nice. This was really good, especially if after you just conquered a bunch of cities from a civilization, you send Ibrahim into their capital, and you don't have to worry about that loyalty pressure at all for any of those cities that you just conquered. And yeah, so yeah, I definitely get this one. Definitely get Ibrahim if you're playing the Ottomans, for sure. Now, a quick overview again of these different governors and sort of my opinions on them. So I tend to think Pingala, Reyna, and Victor as very useful. Overall, just I think their bonuses are useful in many scenarios, and so I tend to be getting those governors as often as I can. And then we have these sort of somewhat useful governors that, you know, they're okay and they have some nice bonuses, but I tend not to be getting all of them. So we have Magnus for city building, and then also Liang for improving your cities. And then we have the two governors which are very situational. So Maksha, if you're focusing on religion, you will get Maksha. If you're not focusing on religion, you can pretty much forget that Maksha exists. And then Ibrahim, if you're the Ottomans, you definitely want to be getting him. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.